lot of trap beats fall flat. And it isn't because the producer is bad at making beats, it's because they're making the wrong decisions and focusing on the wrong things when they're making the beat. So in this video, I'm going to focus on the 3 main things that make trap beats hit and how to instantly level up your sound. I'll be using one of my own Memphis trap beats as an example so I can show you exactly what I mean. Alright, let's get into it. First things first, and it's sound selection. Now, a lot of people hear sound selection and they think that having bad sound selection means you're picking bad sounds, and that's not necessarily true. It could mean you're using good sounds, but the combination of the sounds you're using is wrong. You have sounds that are fighting for the same place in the mix, or the instrumentation just doesn't go together. Like you're using acoustic guitar and then you have some crazy synth lead that you'd hear on a Travis Scott song or something like that. It just doesn't blend well. A lot of producers think that it's about picking the craziest sounds possible if you want to have a hard trap beat, but that's not it. We want to find sounds that work well together, that they all have their own place in the beat and they all have one specific job. If you're looking at my beat here, I don't have a ton of sounds. I'm not layering up a bunch of things. I have very intentionally picked my sounds and put them in different spots. In this beat here, I didn't use a ton of sounds. We can look right here. I used 1, 2, 3, 4 different melodic elements. I have this main melody section, which is like a synthy multi-key. I have this analog lab right here, which is just a piano playing the bass notes of the chords. The second analog lab is just strings. Something just to go in the background and add a little depth. And then the last one is bells, which is just layering up with that top line from the synth. So I picked these sounds to go together. You listen to a lot of trap beats, you'll hear these same sounds being blended together. Not these same exact presets, but these same exact types of sounds. Pianos, strings, synth keys, and bells. Bells a lot in the Memphis trap. When your sound selection is solid, mixing becomes super easy. I did not have to do a whole lot of processing. My drum sounds, they're already pre-selected in my template. I know these sounds go well together. They're gonna hit hard every single time. All I have to do is some basic leveling. For my melodic elements, we look at the main melody, there's nothing on there. The piano, I dropped the lows and the highs. The strings, I dropped the lows. And the bells, I didn't do anything, except I did throw an effect rack on there. And I believe I just used a preset, lone bolt pad. So I just made it more of an atmospheric sound using that. It's got some delay and reverb, stuff like that. But on my drums, there's like nothing. It's just leveling, some minor EQing, but it's all done ahead of time. I know that the mix is gonna sound good. The second thing is the arrangement. Problem that a lot of producers have is not knowing how to arrange the beat so that it stays interesting. So my chorus right here, it has everything, all the sounds in the beat, they all play here. It has the most energy, but if I did that the entire time, it would become super repetitive and super boring. So what I did is, coming out of the hook, I drop the strings, I drop the bells, I leave just the piano and the synth, and I took that top line on the synth and I dropped it an entire octave. That changes up the energy, gives it a completely different feel. And I also took out the 808, the bounce snare is not going to play for a while, the kicks out, open hats out. I left the triangle, but there's a lot of extra space here. And then there's also this transition element. And that's an underutilized thing too, I think. you can just cut from section to section. We can just, if I mute this, still sounds good, but adding this in, it just gives you like a little smoother transition there. It lets the artist know that something different is happening right now. And then as I go through, I bring the kick and the 808 back in after 4 bars. And then after the next 4 bars, I bring in the open hat and I let that play. And I also brought the strings back in. And then for the next 8-bar section, I brought in the bounce snare and yeah, that's it. So that part stays mostly the same. We're just building up energy. And then right here at the end, we're gonna hit the snare roll. And we drop out the piano, which takes out quite a bit of energy. That low piano gives a lot of energy to this beat. And we're gonna suck that out. And you'll look at the bell pattern, you can see it's obviously more simplified than the main chorus. So the bells only play in the verse section at the very end here, and it's a very simplified version. The melodies still drop down. We lose the piano. We take out the hi-hats. Dropping the hi-hats is something that a lot of people overlook. Dropping the hi-hats makes the bounce feel completely different. There's just so much room here, and you know something's coming. And then I cut all the drums for the last bar and a half. What I did here is I just dragged them all back to this last snare hit. That snare hit is the marking point for everything to cut. And then we just drop back into our melody. And I have just that simple riser transition effect right there. Good arrangement isn't about adding more. It's about knowing when things should be playing. A lot of times it's just taking stuff out, putting it back in, taking something else out. If you're changing like two to 3 sounds every 8 bars, you're going to have a good arrangement that stays interesting throughout the entire thing. Arrangement is all about controlling the energy. If we don't change anything during the entire arrangement, it's going to become very stagnant, very boring. It gets super repetitive. If it's full force all the time, it loses that specialness. We take out the energy, then when it comes back in, it's going to feel like it's hitting even harder. Point number 3 is space. We need to leave space for the artist. Beginning producers especially, they always think something's missing and that they need to add something else. But the problem is we keep adding and adding and adding. All of a sudden there's not enough space for the artist. Now, if you're making beats that are solely just to be standalone beats, this doesn't really apply. But when we're building a beat that we hope an artist is going to get on one day, we need to leave space for them to do their thing. We don't need to overload it with effects. We don't need to overload it with snare rolls and 808 rolls and just making it way overcomplicated. We just need to leave space for the artist. And that is part of our arrangement too. When we take things out, that creates special pockets for the artist to really go in and do something and shape it to their sound. Most trap beats don't fail because the producer's not talented. It's because of the decisions they make early on. If you focus on sound selection, arrangement, and space, you're going to improve way faster than if you were chasing plugins. Better decisions beat better tools every time. Till next time, it's been Fritchie the Producer. Peace.